Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I will try to be respectful of your time and go through the presentation. It'll take about 25 minutes, somewhere around that, but it will be available afterwards for the bonus session and to answer even more of your questions. So at this point, my name is Oliver. My call sign is K6OLI, and I'm the District Emergency Coordinator for Aries LAX Northeast District. And I'm really excited tonight to see so many of you to join us for the beta testing program of the Did You Feel It form on Winlink. So that's a fun project, and I hope we can get you excited, and I hope you will join us in participating. I tried to come up with a snazzy name for this, and the best I could do was Aries Alliance in Earthquake Country. So we look forward to working with all of you on this. And we want to combine amateur radio and citizen science to promote really what it's all about, community resilience for our own communities. So the what, when, where, and how. Here's the quick agenda. Why reporting Did You Feel It matters. What amateur radio can contribute specifically, and you'll be surprised at how much that actually is. We'll walk through an exercise setup of what the rules of the game are, and and what we suggest might be productive for your own groups. And again, the how, the rules of the game, and give you some hands-on training where we show you how exactly to install the file and how to actually make it available to your own groups as well. And as a bonus, we'll talk about GPS coordinates with tools that you already have on your smartphone, or if you have a GPS dongle, with a GPS dongle. So that's the program for today, and without much ado, let's go straight into the quick presentation here. What we're doing today is kind of unique because it's an Aries Alliance collaboration, if you will. Today, we've got Aries groups from Southern California, Central California, Northern California, Oregon, Washington, Arizona, Nevada, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico on this call. Thank you so much for joining us. This is very exciting, and I'm really happy to see so many of you have joined us. So it's an Aries collaboration with the Winlink development team, and in this case, Greg, KJ6SJT, who I put in the Winlink development team section here. Of course, he's also the SEC for his area for Aries. And Mike, N6KZB, who of course is also one of the driving forces behind making these forms available. So Greg wrote the forms, and Mike makes sure that we're all on top of things and gets us published. On the USGS side, we've worked with David Wald, who is a geophysicist and kind of the father of the Did You Feel It program, the way that you report it right now on the web, and the way that the databases are handled and evaluated. And Vince Kitoriano, who's a programmer for the USGS, and who's been absolutely fantastic in working specifically with Greg to make this form available in record time. I have to say my hat's off to them. And by the way, if you're looking at the map here on the right, I took the western seaboard all the way from Vancouver to Tijuana in the south, and Hawaii and Puerto Rico. And those are actually dots from the 2018 Did You Feel It map that people submitted after earthquakes via the web. And we hope that through amateur radio, we can actually provide quality information and actually do that even in the absence of local internet. Quick scientific background on why Did You Feel It matters. The reason is it measures the effect of an earthquake on the Earth's surface, which is also called intensity. And they measure the intensities through a series of certain key responses, such as people waking up. If furniture moves, the more it moves, the more intense the earthquake was. Damage to chimneys, or if you have complete destruction, that's one of those information points that they definitely want to have. And the other thing is, it's more meaningful measure of severity to the non-scientist than magnitude. Magnitude comes from the instrumentation side of things. Intensity comes from the responses. And by the way, you can have a mid-magnitude earthquake that has a high intensity if there's a lot of damage observed on the ground. And at the same time, you can have a high magnitude earthquake, and usually you'd expect a high intensity, but maybe the infrastructure was great and the intensity was relatively low. So just keep that in mind. While they're correlated, there's not a absolute causation in this. So, excuse me, the magnitude, the intensity refers to the effects actually experienced. And if you think about that, that's very valuable to have because that means firsthand experience from the people who are there in our case. Here's a chart straight from the USGS, and we're not going to go too much into detail. I'll point you to that on the earthquake.usgs.gov website, and it just shows you a violent earthquake means you've got considerable damage in design structures. So even well-designed frame structures out of plumb. And at the same time, weak earthquakes, which many of us experience on a regular basis, you feel quite noticeably, but it's just, there isn't any permanent structural damage to the system. So just understand there is a whole scale of information that is valuable for scientists, first responders, and of course for us as users. Example of the 2019 Ridgecrest earthquake sequence, the 6.4 actually had 51,000 responses. And if you think about Ridgecrest as a very small community, the 51,000 comes because a lot of people in Los Angeles went onto their smartphones, went onto their computers and reported it. Interestingly enough, the 7.1 was reported less. I guess it was on a Friday night, people were already out clubbing and they thought it was part of the club. I don't know, but so did you feel it is a major component of the USGS's understanding of earthquakes, and they really, really appreciate the information that it can provide. The Did You Feel It report on Winlink. A couple of quick words on this. This was a formed collaboration by the USGS, who was extremely open to us approaching them about it. The Winlink development team, who especially Greg and Mike said, let's do this. And Ares LAX Northeast that, kind of initiated and brought the two sides together. And hopefully now, you and your groups. It's in a questionnaire format, and we already talked about because it reflects your experience of the earthquake. And the Winlink data essentially is the same as the web form data on the USGS website. So there's no difference. If you answer one, you've answered the other and vice versa. The input is very, very straightforward. It's an HTML form. We all use HTML on a daily basis on the internet. And then you've got a JSON output. Very simple text file that then is sent to the USGS directly. And I want to stress this right now. Your responses, unless you make a change in the to field, will go directly to the United States Geological Survey. And this is why we want to have an organized approach to this. And we'll go a little bit into detail about the fields. At this point, I just want to mention two of them. The top two are compulsory. So if you want to submit the report, you have to both say whether you felt it or not, and the location where you were at the time. If you did not feel the earthquake, then it's also good to send a report if the earthquake happened in your area. Why? Because it gives the USGS a good idea of where the boundaries of these earthquakes are. So it's a very valuable thing to do, to actually send this kind of information. Why does it matter? For the USGS, it matters a whole deal. And when we talked, I was just blown away because they really like this. One, it improves the quality of data, especially when you have amateur radio operators send this. Apparently, some of you have already submitted through the web the Did You Feel It reports and have pointed out that you're amateur radio operators. And the USGS actually made note of that in a very positive manner. The nice thing about amateur radio operators, of course, is also we've got FCC licensed call signs, so you can look us up and can verify, is that location close to what we expect. So this gives an added bonus. There's also a very important part of this for the USGS. Amateur radio can actually fill gaps in the reporting. Imagine a major earthquake that disrupts internet, cell phones, etc. What happens with the reporting is that you have this donut where around the epicenter, you don't get any reports about the intensity of the earthquake. You only get it once you get into areas where the internet is still up and running and where the cell phones are still working. Amateur radio can actually fill this gap because as you're getting ready to deploy, you might decide to just test your equipment, throw up that long wire antenna and send a "did you feel it" report out. Or you may deploy it in Ares LAX's case to a hospital, do your check-ins, send your first HSA, and then maybe have some breathing room and say, let's send this in and make sure they have that data. Ultimately, that data is used both for science, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but also informs FEMA response and first responder response. And for those that still have internet access, it provides a good idea of where the hardest hit areas are. But what are the benefits for Ares and amateur radio? One, by reporting this, we protect our communities by improving science. Having quality data improves the scientific understanding of earthquakes. It gives us a chance to collaborate with a government agency, in this case, the United States Geological Survey, and prove that amateur radio can contribute productively to the understanding in science and to emergency response. And finally, we get to train our operators to send quality data, very important, and of course, to use their equipment effectively. So that's very exciting in that respect, because every time you set up, and by the way, we're open to any which way you want to send these files on Winlink via Telnet, HF, VARA, RDOF, Pactor, Winmore, whatever you want, or Packet, or VARA FM, whatever you can come up with. Heck, if you want to send it via Iridium Go, by all means, go ahead and try that. The form, the Felted report on the left is the official webmail form, and on the right is the form that Greg created with input from the USGS. And you see the fields are identical. The main difference is that the web form is vertical and the Winlink form actually has a horizontal component to it. But both of them require you to fill out the "did you feel it" and fill out your location. So you've got the USGS version and the Winlink version, and they both inform a JSON. And that JSON contains all the answers that you gave, and that goes into the USGS database. In the case of the USGS version, it goes straight into the database. In case of the Winlink version, what happens right now, because we're in beta testing, it goes to a separate account that they set up. Once the USGS gets an official email account, that'll be a permanent email account, that will go into the Winlink version of the "did you feel it," and your responses will go directly into the database as well. And from the USGS database, the information is populated. It goes to the science community, which then provides models for hazard mitigation, for first responder training, for utilities, for instance, for planning, and it informs policy and so on. And of course, that database is also accessed directly by these different communities. And finally, it also creates an intensity map, a "did you feel it" map, where your information is recorded and visible to anybody with net access, which is, I find, one of the most useful tools in getting a feeling for an earthquake. So how can you help? Well, here with the Ares Alliance, we're looking to do some beta testing, collaboration, and coordination. And quite frankly, we also have an ulterior motive here. If this is a format that you find useful in delivering training, why not do this more often? If you have techniques and ideas that have worked really well for you, why not share that through this kind of Zoom type format? But let's get back to the "did you feel it." The way you can help the most is form a small work group within your own organization. We suggest 5 to 15 people. You can certainly grow that if you have more people who are interested. And set some goals and train the participants in how to use the form and how to submit it. And then get together and report an event. And there are two options. You can either report a real event from the past that happened in your area. When we talked with the USGS, they said Northridge was a big earthquake in LA County. If you're willing to report that, just get the time and the day right. And you can actually, that would actually be considered real data because you remember what most of the people in the area remember very much what they were doing at the time Northridge hit. You report that information, it's valid data as far as they're concerned. Or you can set up an exercise event. And the Winlink form actually accounts for that. The web form, you don't have that option, but in the Winlink form, you can set up either an exercise or a real event. And that's up to you. You don't have to be limited to one event. So if you want to test 2, 3 events, by all means, do that. But please do it as a group. And we'll talk about clusters. And then the next step is fill out and send it. Did you feel it Winlink report with your group? In the comments, we would suggest put in the mode that you used, i.e. packet, Pactor, VARA, Telnet, just to give the other side an idea of how this was sent. And please CC your exercise coordinator. And that doesn't mean me. You know, in our case, actually in Aries LAX Northeast, I'm not the exercise coordinator. Jeff, W2JCL is. So in this case, I would CC him and submit it to the USGS, because then our exercise coordinator has a record of the file as well. And if you have any suggestions, things that you consider you could do better, or we could do better, or we could improve, please feel free to email me at my call sign, k6oli@arrl.net. And any of your suggestions, you know, are welcome. This is what we're here for. All right, goals plan work. We already talked about that. Submit quality data to USGS from around the country. And I think they're not expecting this right now. When we talk to them, I still think they believe that this is a LA thing, but we told them we could get the, you know, we could reach out and see whether we can get the country involved. And so I think they'll be very excited to hear from the stations in Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Nevada, Arizona, who want to participate in this. And you have to understand, if you do this as a cluster, you kind of light up like a real event or even an exercise event. You light up as a cluster, and for them, this is great to figure out, is this the data we're looking for? Does this fit our models? And what can possibly go wrong? So think about that. You're really helping in the beta testing there. It helps identify gaps. So again, any things that you run into where you say, you know, this could be done better, shoot me an email. And of course, it gives your operators a chance to train and have fun with amateur radio. I think this is what this is all about. Plan, we already talked about small groups and training members, and always the most important part, have fun. Whenever anything happens, have fun. By the way, this is the community internet intensity map on the right of the recent earthquake in by Ridgecrest, Searles Valley. And interestingly, there the intensity was really, really high in spite of the fact there was a 5.5 earthquake. So understand they experienced this a lot more intensely than the rest of us. We just felt it. All right, at this point, I'd like to pause for questions and see whether anybody has any questions.